All right. Hello, everyone. You are listening to the Minding Mind podcast, where we live life with ease, connection, and permission to just be. I'm your host, Evelyn LeVasseur, and welcome back to another episode. Today, I'm going to sit down and chat with Anna T. Brooks, the Soul Success Coach. And I cannot wait to get into this conversation because we all know that we've had that nudge, that feeling of there's got to be more out there. Like, I've done all the things I'm supposed to do, and something still feels like it's missing. And that's where the element of choice comes in. So we're going to get into that, and I'm really excited about this conversation. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Anna. So Anna supports empowered female entrepreneurs and business owners who have hustled their way to success, and they get to take back control of their lives. She works with the woman who wants it all, not just financial success, but also the relationships, lifestyle, and connection to their true purpose. Anna, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to talk to you now.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really happy to be here.
So let me just tell everyone that Anna got up bright and early for us today because for me, recording this is Thursday evening at 6 p.m. For Anna, it's actually Friday morning at 8 a.m. and she does not look like it's 8 a.m. She's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So thank you for getting up early for us.
Thank you. Oh, that's easy. I love my mornings.
I'm not a morning girl, but I do it when I have to. And anyway, we were talking before we started recording, and we had a lot in common as far as our backgrounds in not only the fitness world, but also with the negative food relationship, which really translated to a negative self relationship. How about we start there? How did you feel like when you were in it, when you were in the thick of it, and you had these eating behaviors followed by exercise behaviors, were you aware that that's what was happening?
Yeah, I was. I mean, it's hard not to be aware that something is problematic when you're hiding it from everyone. Nobody at that point knew about this. I was binge eating in private. I was a personal trainer, so I was, presenting a front to absolutely everybody. And all my clients thought I was perfect because I looked the part. I looked how I should look as a personal trainer, I guess. And yeah, I knew it was a problem because I was not telling anyone about it. I was doing it in private. I was over exercising to combat that, which is why nobody could see, because I wasn't, falling into becoming obese or anything like that. It was because I was constantly doing the two sides of it. And, I knew that it wasn't healthy because my entire life revolved around it. When I was planning to meet up with a friend for dinner or something like that, I knew that we would go to a nice Italian restaurant and I would order myself a side salad and put some grilled chicken on it. And that's what they would see me eat. And I knew on the way home, I'd be doing the drive-through through McDonald's and then, absolutely stuffing myself with that on the way home when they couldn't see me. So I already knew that. It was already planned out. It was like my whole life revolved around this secret world. So I knew it was a problem, but I didn't have any concept that I could actually heal it. I just thought this is something I have to put up with.
What do you think it took for you to say, I'm done living this way? I'm sick of hiding it? Like, what was the process for you, I guess, mentally and then out in the open? How did you transition yourself from that secretive, which I assume also kind of built up a lot of shame, right? How did you start to move away from that and finally be able to say out loud, this is a problem and I need to do something about it?
It was when I actually understood that it was a problem that existed, because I honestly thought it was just me. When I was going through this, it was a time when eating disorders apart from anorexia weren't really well known, and definitely not binge eating disorder. Nobody had spoken about it. Nobody was talking about emotional eating. I had no idea that this was a thing. I thought it was just me. And so I assumed I don't know how to heal this. I'm just going to have to deal with it. And it wasn't until I actually came across a book by Paul McKenna, who's a hypnotherapist, I believe, and he'd done a lot of books and a lot of audios around I can make you thin, I can make you rich, all of these kinds of things. Obviously, you always create a very triggering title to get the algorithms working. But what he actually did was explain in his books where like emotional eating and binge eating comes from in terms of internally and how we see things, and this fear that we have of, I'm just not going to be able to have this again, which isn't logical, but it just feels like, oh, if I don't eat this right now, it's never going to come around again. And it's such a intense feeling. And in the book, he actually outlined some steps to try to start healing it, such as, allowing yourself to eat what it is that you really want to eat and listening to your body the whole way through. So the part of obviously binge eating and emotional eating a lot of the time was I was inhaling food at a pace that I couldn't understand until I felt sick. And it was this like rush that had to happen. I was not present with what I was eating. And the idea that I could, sit down with my donut or whatever it was that I really wanted, and I had to take a bite and I had to chew it and I had to put it down and I had to sit and taste it and then go for another bite. And the whole rule was I just eat this as much as I want, but I have to taste every mouthful. And it was such a strange concept to me that I started to realize that, oh, okay, I can start to work through this because there's at least someone in the world who understands that this is a problem. And that was when, as our reticular activating system, once we are aware of something, then everything starts popping up. We buy ourselves a new Tesla car and suddenly we see Tesla cars everywhere because it's what we're focused on. And it was the same thing once I realized that, oh, okay, there's a way that I can start to work through this and that I can start to heal this. Everything seemed to start popping out in terms of, I read books about, suddenly people who had been through this and who understood where it was coming from internally in terms of the shame and the not feeling good enough and the feeling like you have to put up a front for everybody else. And that's a big part of why it was hidden, is because it's like, here is my persona that I'm presenting to everybody else, this perfect personal trainer. And then here's what I'm really like behind the scenes. I'm a total mess. And understanding that it was because I was trying to force myself to be everything for everybody else rather than actually listening to myself. And that was a big part of what I was doing, is numbing those emotions with food, because once you get that all in there and you start to feel sick and you start to feel like absolutely numb from it all, then you have that reprieve from the emotions you don't want to actually feel. And when you're not facing that, it just keeps coming back. So that was where the healing all started, and started to open up that, oh, wow, okay, this is something I can actually work through, and this can become something that is a part of my past instead of my forever.
I love that. Now, excuse me, I feel like that is very common for all of us, in that it starts with something even generally small that triggers this idea of just almost like curiosity, like, let me find out more about this. And sometimes it's a book, sometimes it's a podcast, sometimes it's a conversation with somebody who is living a little bit differently than you, right? Like there's something that triggers a curiosity in us and then starts to really open up this world of possibility. I have to ask, in that process, when you were learning about that numbing and learning about how you weren't allowing yourself to process what you felt, once you got through the food part, how did you learn to accept the emotions that you didn't want to feel before? And how did you learn to, one, accept the emotions, and then two, actually process them in a way that allowed you to work through them and not ignore them?
Yeah, that was where the biggest thing was just feeling them. That was the biggest thing for me, because that was why I was numbing myself with food, is because when I felt them, I wanted to shut them off. And so I would numb them with food instead. And as simple as that sounds, that was the very first step that I really had to do. Was when it got uncomfortable, I had to just feel it. I had to sit with it. I had to breathe. I had to just listen. I really started to do a lot more internal work in terms of meditation and breath work, and just being really present in the moment and everything, which is what I didn't do before. I lived very much in the future. I lived in my goals and that was it. And everything was about the future and what I was working towards. And I needed to come back to that present moment and just be like, no, I need to be here. I need to be in this moment. I need to feel whatever's coming up, and then we can listen to this. And sure enough, that, small step started to open the door just a little crack every time for my soul to start speaking to me, because I'd shut it down so many times before that it didn't know. It was out in the closet somewhere, hidden away, and it was like, I was never going to listen to me. I'll just do what I'm doing. And it just opened the door that little bit every time, and my soul started to come out and say, oh, Anna, this is what you're not doing. This is what you're not listening to. This is how you're not living your life the way that you actually want it to be. This is how you're letting the opinions of others guide you. And it just, started to show me just little bits and little bits at a time, until it started to feel good. And it started to feel like, oh, okay, these emotions that I was so scared of, they were actually just my soul trying to speak, trying to have me hear it. And of course, it's uncomfortable when you don't want to face what they're trying to tell you. But when you do it in that small incremental steps, it just wasn't that scary. It was more enlightening. It was more just like, oh, okay, I can do this a little bit at a time, and started, releasing expectations, releasing people from my life that I could tell were just not healthy for me, just letting things go, choosing to spend my time in ways that did actually light me up, that I did actually want to do, learning to speak up, learning to actually say what I mean instead of what I think someone wants to hear. And just all these little things, right? They just kind of start to compound and compound.
How do you feel like this difference in you, right? Because I take that back. I know that when you start living in more alignment with who you are, right? And you stop living the way other people expect you to, there is resistance from the people in your life. There is a discomfort. I know there is this transition period with, I almost want to say that I was learning at the time to hold compassion for them, because the truth is that they were mourning a relationship they used to have with me, because that version of me didn't really exist anymore. But how did you work through seeing all your relationships change? And how did you not let fear of losing out on those relationships stop you from continuing on your journey?
So I'll be honest, for me, it wasn't much of there wasn't much resistance. Everything flowed quite easily. And I know that that comes from because of how long I'd spent living in the future, attaining all these goals, chasing after all these things. Everybody saw me as very independent, very strong-minded, very strong-willed, and that what I say goes anyway. They just weren't aware that I wasn't going after the things that really lit me up. Nobody kind of questioned me. They just assumed what Anna's going to do, she's going to do, and that's that. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't have much resistance, because I think people just assumed if this is kind of changing and Anna's changing, then she's going to change anyway, and I can't do anything about it. But having said that, one of the things I love about what I do with coaching and with my clients is I'm not a mentor, I'm a coach. I work with people in their way, not in my way. So I work with a lot of people who have a very different experience than I do. And a lot of my clients, in fact, have the exact opposite, where they do have a lot of family, friends, acquaintances, work people who this does trigger very deeply. And it's a big part of the reason why they won't make the changes in the first place, because they're scared of how this is going to impact and the fallout that's going to happen from relationships. And the way that I always kind of start to guide them through it is to say, there's going to be two ways that this is going to go. Either this person is going to rise with you, with the energy that you are now showing up as, and they're going to also do their work that's required in order to heal and to move forward and to grow and evolve this relationship. If they're meant to be in your life, that's what will happen. Or they will exit stage right. It will happen on its own. Right? You don't need to force it. You don't need to push it. You don't need to have a sit down with them and have this really in-depth conversation. You can if you want, if that's important to you, but you don't need to, because when you change and you evolve, everything around you does. And you'll find that a lot of these people that you're very worried about, they will actually just disappear without you even having to lift a finger, because your energy just won't be in alignment. Exactly like you said before, they're living in a world where you play a certain role in their life. If you stop playing that role, they're going to have to find either a new spot for you, or they're going to find someone else to fill that spot, right? If you were the one who was overgiving and people pleasing and doing everything for them, and suddenly you're not doing that anymore, then yes, they might get a bit worked up about it if they don't have anyone else immediately in their life who can take that role. But they might grow, they might evolve, or they might go leech onto somebody else because they realize you're no longer giving that energy. Either way, it's still your choice. Either way, it still comes back to, okay, if there is going to be some fallout, if someone is going to be a bit upset that I'm no longer the person I was to them, and it's in a way that I know is unhealthy, then is this really someone I want in my life? If not, then maybe I just need to work on just trusting that releasing them and this leaving is actually for the best for all of us, because it's the best for you, because you're actually moving forward and elevating into what you know you truly deserve and how you want to live your life. And honestly, it gives them the opportunity to do the same. Whether they take it or not, that's totally up to them. But by you, pulling the plug on that dysfunctional part of, the relationship, it does give them the opportunity to go a different way if they choose to. Or, like I said, they'll just find somebody else to leech onto instead.
Yeah, it's so true when you say it that way, because I think often about the fear that I used to have in speaking up in my relationships or speaking up for whatever it was. I had a lot of anxiety around, like, how are they going to receive it? How are they going to respond? This isn't going to go well. And I realized that that was just me trying to control the outcome, because I was so defined by my role in the relationship, right? So I guess it took time, obviously, but recognizing that my job in my relationship, in any relationship, is always to honor myself, speak every ounce of my truth that I feel comfortable sharing, and allowing the other person to have whatever response they have, because that's intuitively their response. I'm not here to control that either, right? So it was a little bit of recognizing that I had to release the fear of their response, and understand that part of trusting me also has to be trusting that they can handle things from their perspective as well, So it was like letting go of that controlling the outcome and just saying, like, I can speak to whatever it is that's on my mind or whatever I'm going through, and know that regardless of the outcome of the conversation, I'm still okay. Yeah, that was hard for me to learn.
It is. It's a big lesson. And it comes from as well a lot. I think we have to really understand where fear comes from. And most often it's coming from how we want to be viewed by other people, especially if we've been seen as, the good one, the one who takes care of everyone, who does everything for everyone, who's always doing the right thing. And suddenly we're doing things that are different. We have this fear of, like, oh, I'm going to be called selfish, I'm going to be called self-serving, I'm going to be called uncaring for others, and they're going to say these things and think these things. And it all still comes back to, okay, but how do you see yourself? Do you love yourself? Do you see you as you truly are? Do you truly want to see you in your greatest power? And do you truly believe that when you are, keeping your cup full, when you are overflowing, you are actually of best service to everybody else around you? Because if your cup's empty because you're always just overgiving and people pleasing to everybody else, anything they're getting is the dregs that's left at the bottom of the cup anyway. They're getting the worst of you. Whereas when you are actually prioritizing yourself, filling your cup to the point of overflow, then anything that anyone else gets is the best of you. It's literally everything that's, that you are so full and so happy and so lit up by. And this is what they're receiving. It's that overflow that's coming out of the cup. And that impacts everybody a lot better than, yeah, like I said, the leeches that are just scraping out those last little dregs at the bottom of your cup. You're
Yes.
not feeling good, you're not serving anyone, and they're getting the dregs anyway. Once you're overflowing, it's like you don't really care if someone who is going to, who might have been called a leech or something in another world, you don't care if they get a little bit because you've got plenty. It doesn't matter. But of course, when you have nothing left, then that feels horrible to have somebody draining you.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you talked a little bit before we started recording about just the idea of the things that we experienced when we were younger stay with us, right? Until until you recognize the difference in your choices, right? The difference in who you get to become. Can you speak a little bit about how, just what you see from that perspective, and then how does that translate for you in coaching as well?
Yeah. So I have I suppose, quite a unique view that some people don't agree with, and that's absolutely fine. You get to obviously, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. That's what we get to be. We get to be individuals. But I do believe that the things that we go through, the wounds and the lessons and the hardships that we go through in life, I do think that we have chosen them, not on a level of, I chose to be abused or I chose to be this or anything like that. I mean, on the level of, I've chosen this lesson because there's a growth here for me. There's an opportunity to heal for me that is part of my purpose in how I am meant to help the world and how my soul is meant to evolve. And I want to be very clear that as a child, you're not responsible for the ways that you were wounded. As an adult, you're responsible for how you choose to heal. That's where your responsibility lies. You're not at fault. You're not, you didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this. Anything that happened to you and the way that you were wounded by others as a child, that's on them to claim that. But as an adult, if you allow that to become your entire story and you let that become that this is the reason that you're a victim for the rest of your life, that is on you, because you have the opportunity as an adult to heal this, to transform this. And it's not because you're releasing those other people from the responsibility of what they did. They've got their own soul journeys. They've got their own lessons and their own karma and everything that they're going to have to work through for what they did. What you're releasing is that hold of it on you, because as long as you carry that, you're the one who keeps suffering. They've either forgotten or they've continued their life the way that it is. Whatever their journey is, trust me, they're going to have to deal with it one way or another. But what you want to do is work on releasing it from you, so that that pain, that trauma, that wound isn't the guiding light in your life forever, but so that you can actually heal and transform from it and move in a direction where I call it like your superpowers, because I really do believe that those wounds open up something in us that would not otherwise be able to be accessed. And it is like a superpower. It's like something that you have, that you are able to understand, that you are able to embody, that nobody else or very few people in the world can actually understand at that level. And that makes it a superpower. I mean, it's like asking, somebody who has lost the love of their life is going to be able to understand healing from this and moving forward and finding yourself and finding love in a way that someone who's never gone through that would not be able to. There's a depth to it that if you haven't been to that level of pain, you wouldn't be able to understand that depth of healing either. And that is a superpower, and doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it great that you had to go through that. But I think we do realize, and we watch people around us constantly, where it becomes clear that hard situations build very resilient, strong and resourceful people. Easy situations build uninspired people. But understand that we're all going to have our own challenges. We're all going to have lessons that we came here to learn. And, as a parent, for example, it's not your responsibility to take away their lessons for them. You're always going to want to support them and love them and give them the best, obviously, that you can. But do understand that the best for them is to let them experience what they came here to experience, and to understand that if they are hurt, they will be okay. They do, if you are there to support them and help them through it, they will heal, and it will actually make them even stronger and give them even more superpowers that they're going to look back on and go, I'm really grateful I went through that. That was really hard. At the time, I wouldn't have said that. But now looking back, I realize how much that actually shaped who I became. And that's a difficult thing. I'm not a parent, by the way. I'm just going to say that. However, so many of my clients are. And I think that they come to me because I see things in a way that they often do, which is that, their children are here to go on their own journey as well. They're not just a subset of you, which
Oh, yeah.
unfortunately a lot of parents do feel that, I own my child and they need to do things the way I want them to do them and the way that I see things for them and I know what's best for them. And it's really, really hard when you're talking about a completely separate human who has their own journey that you have chosen to be the custodian of. However, they need to go on that journey themselves. And I can only imagine through my work with my clients how difficult that can be to detach. But it's so important because that's what lets them actually go and experience their life the way that it was designed and the way that they are going to be able to become that best version of themselves where they feel worthy, right?
Yeah.
So
I have to be honest, I don't feel like it was difficult to detach from the idea of, because I did used to see like I wanted to protect my daughters from pain and right, like I don't want them to feel some of the pain that I felt, but it was it was honestly connecting with myself and recognizing my own resilience and recognizing my own power that allowed me to step back and look at them as not an extension of me, but an absolute individual of their own. And I even verbalize to them, like, it is not my job as your mom to keep you from ever feeling pain. It's my job to help you work through it, right? Because the fact is that I'm not always going to be here, but my lessons can be. So, yeah, I agree with that to the extent of knowing that my kids are completely separate people who have completely separate journeys and completely separate purposes in this world. And it is not my job to mold them into who I think they should be or to live and think how I think they should think. It is literally about nurturing who they are and walking alongside them while they figure it out. Yeah, 100%. I love that thought. How did you transition from the fitness industry into the coaching that you're doing today?
it was because of the personal training. So I specialized in fat loss, funnily enough, knowing my history, but that was my specialty. So I work with a lot of women, especially. And I did other things as well. I focused a lot on kind of sports and training athletes as well, but a lot of it was fat loss. And the more that I worked with my clients, the more that it became glaringly obvious that their problem wasn't in the gym, because they would come in, they would have their sessions, and then they wouldn't do the work outside of the gym. They wouldn't come in for their own sessions. I would sit down and take the time. I wasn't one of those coaches that would just give them a, stock standard, here's your diet plan, eat this because that's what everybody else eats. I would take time, sit down with them and really work out, what do you like to eat? How do we structure this in a way that works for you? And it'll be very personalized. And then they still wouldn't do it. And over time, it just became glaringly obvious that, like, I can do all I can in our 2 45-minute sessions a week, but that's not going to make any difference when it comes to a fat loss goal. For general fitness and health, sure, that's going to be great for you, but otherwise, no. And that was when I actually started doing something in the gym that no other personal trainers had done, which is I asked if I could use the consult room where you would normally do, your weigh-ins and your check-ins and everything. And I said, can I just book this out for like 45 minutes and I'm going to just have my client in here and I'm going to talk to them. And that is what I started. And I didn't even know that was coaching at the time. I just started doing it. But I said, if you're comfortable, because here's, let's look at this. We've been doing this for this long. Here's how much weight you've lost. Here's your goal. Don't seem to be getting there. Let's try and work out what seems to be the issue. And do you want to come and actually today just sit and talk about it? And that's where it started. And we started talking and I started getting to know my clients, like really know them and find out, like, what have they really been through? Like, what is their trauma? And the things that you learn about people that you're like, oh my gosh, like, this makes so much sense now. I understand why you don't feel worthy, why you don't feel like you can do this, why you don't trust yourself to take the action you said you would. And it just started clicking. And it wasn't very long at all. I think it was maybe less than a year before I just left personal training, because I just said, I'm the Band-Aid and I'm sick of being the Band-Aid for these issues. I want to help people truly transformed from the inside out. And and then I just started transitioning. So first it was that, health coaching, and then fitness coaching and binge eating recovery coaching. And then it just transitioned from there. And as I kind of learned more about myself and what I'm really here to do. So, yeah.
Do you find that it's easy for you? Do you find that it's easy to guide someone to recognizing their next level of purpose type work?
Yes, very much so. I do this in a couple of ways. One of the big things I use is a tool called true sidereal astrology, which is different to like mainstream or tropical astrology that most people understand. True sidereal astrology is based on the actual physical placements of the planets and the constellations in the sky. So when you talk about mainstream astrology, it doesn't actually use the sky as it is. So if you look up, for example, we just had a full moon, tropical astrology was saying as it's in Aries, it was actually in Pisces. If you look up into the sky, got a telescope and actually saw where the moon was placed in the constellations, it was actually in Pisces. So tropical astrology just uses like a seasonal type of thing. It cuts all the constellations down to the same, like 30 days per one, even though some constellations are actually bigger, some are shorter. And so it's not actually reflective of where the planets and the constellations are in the sky. And when I discovered true sidereal astrology for myself, this was a total game changer, because I felt finally understood on the level of who I truly am. I always felt like there's parts about tropical astrology that I aligned with, but a lot of it still felt like the person that everybody expects me to be. And true sidereal astrology and learning about that felt like, oh my God, this is who I am. Like when I was having my chart read to me, it just felt like this is who I've always known I am on the inside, but I haven't been able to articulate it before. And so this became a big thing for me, and then ultimately for my clients as well. So in terms of my input into, helping them figure out themselves, that's a really big component from what comes from me and the information I can offer to them. But the best part is just allowing them to find their connection, to find what it is to find their connection to their soul, just the same way as I did, through binge eating and through that, and finding, okay, what is it that how is it my soul's trying to speak to me? We all have that connection, and it's unique, and you can't tell someone how their inner knowing is going to speak to them. For some of them, it's going to be just a feeling. For some people, it's going to be words. For some people, they're going to see images. For some people, they really need to meditate. For some people, they just need to play with a puppy. Like, everybody has their own unique ways. And of course, astrology can help with that in understanding what your tendencies might be. But that's my favorite part, is helping people to really trust themselves, that they are going to be able to figure it out. Because as you know, when you have an awareness land, like an awakening moment, when it comes from you, it feels so much more powerful. Even if somebody else could tell you in a split second, which I can with my clients, I can tell them, like, this is the exact root of your issue, and it will land, but it won't land the same as if I guide them and they feel it and they go, oh my gosh, Anna, this is the root issue. And I go, yeah, I could have told you that 6 months ago, but it wouldn't have had that same impact. It needed to come from you. And that's so crucial, because we have people who will tell you all the things, but as we know, sometimes it's not it's not what is being said, it's who it's being said from. And when it's being said from ourselves, we feel it. It lands, it changes, it transforms us. Yeah.
And the truth is, like, when you have that level of awareness, that like huge aha, you can't unsee it, right? You can't go backward now. It's literally like your mind is telling you this is the reality now. And like anything that doesn't align with that, it's like you reject it. You start to reject those things. I love that. So I know we've been talking for quite a while. If people wanted to reach out to you, follow your work, or talk about like, help me find my purpose, right? Like how could they work with you or reach out to you?
Yeah, of course. So I have my kind of main website, which is the milkshake link that I can give you. And that's very easy because then you can find ways to connect with me in terms of Facebook or email and all of these kinds of things, lots of different ways to connect that way. But yeah, I also do have a masterclass that I'm offering for free, which is a really, really powerful one. A lot of what we've talked about today, actually, it just dives in deeper, and that's the You Matter masterclass. And it's a masterclass on prioritizing you. So it's something that it's so powerful if you want to start to understand how is it that I can put myself first, the things that we talked about, how are other people going to react, and how to handle the fallout if I'm actually putting myself first. All of these kinds of things get covered in this masterclass. And yeah, that's a really, really good place to start in terms of if you want just a little bit more of my content and to see what we can do to start kind of shifting things. That would be the masterclass to check out.
Awesome. So I'm going to make sure that I link that in the show notes so that if anybody wants to join, they can hop right in through the notes. And before I can let you go, the question of the hour is, how does minding yours, because we believe in this community that minding yours means doing all the things that are aligned with you, your instinct, your intuition, your soul is yours. If it's an expectation from anyone outside of you, family, school, religion, whatever it is, it's not necessarily yours. So minding yours is about being intuitive and following your instincts. So how do you feel that minding yours impacts the legacy that you'll leave?
Such a good question. So just firstly for legacy, I know for a lot of people that might speak to their children. I'm never going to have children. So
Okay.
for me, legacy has always been a kind of, interesting topic, I guess, to cover. And for me, my clients are a big part of that. I think that the legacy that I want to leave and how I prioritize myself, there's one client that I had who came back to me probably a year or two after we finished working together, just to message me and to say, Anna, thank you for always holding such firm boundaries. I look back on our time together and I can see how I was pushing your boundaries, how I was asking for things. I knew what the, agreement that we had, and I was starting to push it and want more and to take advantage. And you always held such firm boundaries where you said, this is where I feel comfortable. We are not moving past this. We are not moving beyond this. And she said, at the time I was having so many boundary issues in my life with my children, with people around me, with, ex-partners, everything like that, that I was constantly trying to push everybody else's boundaries because mine were being pushed. And I look back now and realize how much this is all coming like from her, that she realized that me holding those boundaries so firmly, she was able to see what it looks like in action for someone to hold boundaries in a loving but firm way, in a way that isn't hurtful, that isn't like, no, I'm not going to do that for you, but just this isn't something we're going to do. And to do it from a place of kindness and love. And she said, looking back now, I can see how much that actually instilled that in me and started to shift things for me, because I could see that there is a way to do this, because I had no other examples in my life of someone, holding boundaries in a loving and firm way. And that pretty much is it for me, is if I can have people that I have impacted that long into the future look back and go, wow, that really shifted something. And it was just by the way that she was. It wasn't actually something she was teaching me in the coaching session, but it was just the way that Anna was with me that landed. I can see how that's going to have a legacy for those people, for those people's children, for generations to come. Yeah.
I love that. And I love the fact that you get to create impact by literally just being yourself, right? It's not even about like the curriculum of your program or the curriculum that's going to be a part of your masterclass. Those are things that people will learn and will resonate, but also the biggest factor is you. It's just you. And I do also agree that legacy is not just about our children. I mean, if you have children, it does play a role, but legacy is literally the impression that you leave anybody that you interact with. So I love that. So Anna, thank you. And I apologize because earlier I did pronounce your name Anna. And you,
Oh, that's okay.
Thank you for being here and sharing with us today and sharing your heart and your story and your work, because it is really needed. I want to thank everyone for joining us both today and tuning into another episode of Minding Mine. If this episode resonated with you, make sure to comment, rate, and review the podcast. Your feedback helps me grow. And until next time, I want you to go live your life on your terms and mind your business. We'll catch you in the next episode.